Ladies and gentlemen, the Singapore government has just released a set of documents, a book, and an exhibition on the events that led to the separation between Singapore and Malaysia. These new insights tells us a very significantly different story from the one that we were used to. And there was so much wisdom, strategy, leadership, maneuvering, and negotiations that we should pick up from our forefathers. And I think I want to extract all this wisdom for you in today's video. So let's watch on to the end. The history that most of us knew was one that Singapore was being kicked out of the Malaysian Federation in 1965. And Mr. Lee Kuan Yew broke in tears in 9th of August in 1965, feeling terrible about the outcome. And that was the story where we're used to. But new insights and new information has come out, actually revealing that we were not exactly being kicked away, but we orchestrated this outcome. I thought that was quite interesting because as I unveil to you all this history, you will see that there's so much wisdom in leadership, strategy, and negotiation, especially from the perspective of the Deputy Prime Minister Goh Keng Swee. I think if you are not to know all this, it will be a huge loss. Okay, so today is a lesson on leadership, business, politics, and most importantly, wisdom and strategy and negotiation. Let's just watch on till the end, shall we? So these newly declassified documents that were reviewed really surprised me that the story of Singapore has now a slightly different history. And I wish to point out the following as I go on to the video to show you what these new perspectives are. Now, first of all, it is a compilation of history, files, documents relating to a lot of discovery from Mr. Goh Keng Swee. I should call him Dr. Goh Keng Swee. And these set of documents were being misplaced for years, found in the MINDEF storeroom in the 1980s. And there was a work done being commissioned by the government to compile all this and extracting a lot of information and documents and history from cabinet papers, from diplomatic cables, conversations, radio, voice recording, and things like that. And it has been declassified, and mine was mind-blowing. Why is it called an albatross? Because Dr. Goh Keng Swee then felt that the Malaysian government was like an albatross across the neck. Albatross is a very big bird, right? Just hung over your neck and choke you, right? So it was called then the Albatross File, which I thought was quite wise. And let's see what this wisdom could be from all these files. The files matters a lot because it gave a blow-by-blow account of what's happening and reflect a lot of strategic thinking, maneuvering, especially with Dr. Goh Keng Swee and how he outmaneuvered everybody to an outcome that turned out to be a best for Singapore and Singapore history for generations to come. And that was a really surprising outcome. And those were fragile, complex, dangerous times across the 23 months where Singapore merged with Malaysia and leading to this outcome of separation. I will extract some of this history and share with you my perspective on the lessons behind. So the lesson I want to share is one where on negotiation, where first of all, when things turn sour between Singapore politicians and Malaysian politicians, the Malaysian federal authorities were considering to arrest Mr. Lee Kuan Yew. And that was a very dangerous moment. In fact, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew told Mr. Hsien that should something happen to him, take care of the mother and the siblings. And that was where, Mr. Hsien actually, when he spoke about it, he choked, and that was a real thing because the Malaysian ultra politicians then, they call the Malaysian elites, were very were very wary of Singapore politicians now campaigning and trying to unseat them in Malaysia, because they also come and compete with the Singapore politicians in their elections. So things turned very sour. They're considering arresting Lee Kuan Yew, but that was where the British Prime Minister heard about it and warned Kuala Lumpur that if you detain Lee Kuan Yew, it will affect UK-Malaysian relationship. That's a very nice way of saying, don't freaking do it, okay? So clearly, it is one that I want to share everybody. In a negotiation, you got to have leverage, okay? What is leverage will depend on situation. And in this case, it's a powerful big brother called UK. And when you want to negotiate with someone, some company, whatsoever, right? You got to find this leverage. What is the leverage? You got to figure that out. It could be resources. It could be something unique, okay? Or could be a fear or something, right? So never go into a negotiation naked without leverage, okay? And that is something that is very important. So clearly, the forefathers had the leverage of having the British behind them in some form. If not, the outcome will be terrible. So there is a second part which I thought was very interesting, that Mr. Lee Kuan Yew did not really want a separation. In fact, his instruction to Goh Keng Swee was try to negotiate for a looser federation. That means Singapore still attached to Malaysia, but a bit looser, right? Please orchestrate this outcome first. Goh Keng Swee don't even think that this is even possible, okay? But interestingly, he did not tell his boss, right? Right. The instruction was very clear from Lee Kuan Yew to Goh Keng Swee, but Goh Keng Swee did not upfront say, Mr. Lee, forget it. These guys are not taking care of our interests. The economic benefits never come. The political complexity is terrible and things like that, right? So he did not go against his boss upfront. He maneuvered quite wisely. He used approach of first securing an empowerment letter for him to negotiate on behalf of Singapore, and go there and face Tun Razak, which is then the Deputy Prime Minister of Malaysia, and negotiate outcome. And in that negotiation, he upfront said, come, let's separate, like let's divorce, right? So now he did not even attempt to achieve the outcome that Lee Kuan Yew wants. But he did not upfront just tell Mr. Lee Kuan Yew off that I'm not going to do it. If you want me to do it, don't send. Please send someone else whatsoever. I thought there's a lot of wisdom in that. Okay, there's a lot of people who when the boss tell them to do something, they just outrun say, I don't believe in this. I'm not going to do that kind of thing, right? But Goh Keng Swee was a very wise, right? He doesn't go against the boss. He get an empowerment letter, get the full empowerment ready, and then he go and negotiate a different outcome without telling his boss. That's pretty wise, right? Now, there's one more thing that Goh Keng Swee did, which I thought was really wise, was he knew that Lee Kuan Yew is too emotionally attached to the Malaysian-Singapore merger. His vision, his life, his commitment, his beliefs is in the merger. And in fact, this is what Mr. Lee Kuan Yew said. Asking someone to break off from this kind of emotional attachment is very difficult, right? He didn't even attempt to do it. So what he did was that, he recognizes it, and then he negotiated a different outcome. And then up to a certain point of negotiation, he already come out with the full blueprint and everything. And he go back and tell Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, we are already here already. They had a conversation. It was quite funny. If you read the news release, so Mr. Lee Kuan Yew and Goh Keng Swee had a conversation, but Mr. Lee Kuan Yew then was in Cameron Highlands, and their cables are probably tapped by operators. So Goh Keng Swee and Lee Kuan Yew spoke in Mandarin. Okay, I was told that Goh Keng Swee Mandarin wasn't that good. That was quite interesting, but they spoke in Mandarin and basically tell him that, it is done, right? We got to separate. Lee Kuan Yew said it was a very big decision. He need time to think through and things like that. It's very difficult to let go. let's all recognize that when we have to deal with emotional attachment, wisdom is not so clear, okay? Even strong, wise leaders will struggle to let go what they believe in it. And you require smart strategies on the side to unhinge them from some of these things. So in that sense, Goh Keng Swee actually, did it already, and then he just basically go and report and say it's done, and you got to sign it. That's separate, right? In Chinese, you call this 生米煮成熟饭. It's already done already. So, let's just do it, right? Pretty smart of him to manage Lee Kuan Yew's emotional attachment, which he saw through his eyes. Now, this is where it touches my heart quite a lot. This is where wife of Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, Mrs. Lee, actually shared that on 9th of August 1965, after the announcement and the speech was given, Lee Kuan Yew, was the closest he ever had to a nervous breakdown. Okay, and my image of Lee Kuan Yew is an unbreakable strongman, right? Very tough, right? And I just want to share this view that I have is that even the strongest person have limits. Even powerful leaders, strongman leaders can break. So I just want to say this, that it is okay not to be okay at times, okay? And I take comfort that we're all human. The good thing is that, when we trip and fall, stand up again and let's just walk on and strive. So Lee Kuan Yew bounced back from that day onwards, charged, and we have the wonderful Singapore that we have today. So lesson learned is that even strong men breaks, so let alone people, mere mortals like us. So now, in hindsight, we all realize now that what Dr. Goh Keng Swee did really was the secret to Singapore's breakaway. And of course, after that, all the leaders rallied behind Mr. Lee Kuan Yew and they charged forward. History is now very clear that that was the right decision. But Dr. Goh Keng Swee never claimed the credit, right? In fact, this part of history all buried, only to be discovered in 1994 by Mr. Lee Kuan Yew in hindsight, when he was reading the papers and he was shocked that that was what Goh Keng Swee did. Goh Keng Swee did not follow what he said. Goh Keng Swee took the empowerment and just go and straight negotiate a separation against the boss idea. Okay, of course, on hindsight, this was the perfect decision, right? So this was where Mr. Lee Kuan Yew actually made the remark. And take note that Goh Keng Swee already retired in 1980s from politics. Nobody knew until today. Of course, Dr. Goh has passed on already. And I thought that was an important history that we all should learn from, is greatness can be quiet. It doesn't claim credit. Great people don't need to claim credit, right? And greatness is not necessary to be self-declared. And they drive towards an important outcome and narrative. And I thought that was something that we all need to learn from. And as long as we drive towards an outcome that we know it's better, credit, visibility, not so important. Now, this is where I thought it's important. When Goh Keng Swee was empowered and he went to negotiate with Tun Razak, the Deputy Prime Minister of Malaysia, Tun Razak was not an easy person to negotiate with because he flips a lot, changed his mind a lot and things like that, unlike the Prime Minister of Malaysia then, Tengku Abdul Rahman. It was a tough negotiation, but Goh Keng Swee had the advantage of relationship. They knew each other. He knew his counterpart since London days when they're studying. They were hockey mates with Barker, which is our law minister then, and they had prior relationship and so on. And that helped a lot in the negotiation. And this is where I learned a lot in business and my life, that relationship is very important in negotiation. Okay, relationship is very important in negotiation, and he used that to his outcome, and they had some trust that's pre-established, even though they are from at a different end of the spectrum and opposite side of the table, and that's really helped. The lesson learned here is that in life, pay it forward. Build a lot of relationship with many people in the head, because you don't know when you need to pull those levers And that's why those relationships need to be done. Go actively and pay it forward. You may pay forward to 100 people and you only have a pool return in one. Too many Singaporeans are too calculative in giving of favors and offers and whatsoever and help, right? But this, in life, I've seen it, I've used it, and I've learned it as well. Pay it forward in relationship. It will come back someday. And even if it's not, you feel better. Now, this is another important lesson. Goh Keng Swee realized that the Malaysian politicians are not going to do Singapore any good. The political cost was unbearable. It was very clear to him, and there were no economic benefits. So he was very clear that instead of letting it follow what his boss wants for a loose connection, it was very clear also right now, looking backwards, that even if we're not separated in 1965, separation will eventually happen in a more painful, maybe even bloody way, as what history have told us in many countries. However, Goh Keng Swee was very decisive. He knows that it is better to sever the relationship. So he believes in this thing called what I call 长痛不如短痛, right? Decisive, cut off and move on. So it turned out to be the wise way. And in life, we need to make painful, decisive decisions, sometimes on behalf of our bosses. That I think was quite wise of him. 8, I think that it is important to note that Goh Keng Swee maneuvered for a empowerment upfront, knowing that Lee Kuan Yew didn't really want the separation, right? He uses this empowerment and use it as a form of negotiation, and I thought that was pretty wise of him. In life, you don't go head on against the wall, right? You outmaneuver it, but you get the right tools and weapons that you need for this maneuvering. That was pretty wise of him. Now, this is where I also want to share that it was very clear that finally, in face of adversity, it's very important never to show fear, never to show division. It was very clear in hindsight that it was the unity of the politicians in Singapore that stood very closely, even though they were in face of possibility of a threat from Malaysian in terms of arresting and things like that. So they will not let their fear be shown. I'm quite sure at that point in time is a fearful situation, and they have unity. So in face of adversity, we cannot show fear. We cannot be cowed to intimidation and things like that. Now, last is I thought is the most important. Make the best out of uncertain outcomes. I don't think at that point in time when they parted ways, it was clear that was a good outcome. In fact, it was so heartbreaking that it invoked tears from Mr. Lee Kuan Yew. They did not just slump into depression or whatsoever. They take whatever the outcome is and chong forward, making the best out of it. And I think it's very true in life. We will never know whether this is the best decision, but we can make the decision outcome better if we work on it. So I thought that was a wise thing that came out of the whole negotiation and the separation. Now, it's very clear, of course, looking backwards. And at a point in time, I think they went on to do all the right things. And of course, luck has to play with of some of the things as well. So I think in life, sometimes when we make the decision, stop thinking whether this is the best, not the best. We just make the best of it and chiong. I think that is the better strategy for us. In hindsight, right now, all turned out well for Singapore. And I look at this part of the history and is privileged to be able to learn this history as a watcher and as a student and not go through it as a participant. These lessons deeply imprinted me over the last 2 days. And I wish that you all pick up some of this lesson as well. To you, it might mean different thing, but to me, I think this is a wise MBA class equivalent lesson. And I hope that all of y'all will take advantage of this lesson. Let me know your thoughts, and I hope to see you again in my videos. Bye-bye.